Between 2020 and 2022, we've seen a real change in pricing in the European freight market, not just with additional customs fees, but the freight rates themselves have been particularly volatile. In today's episode of Espace TV, our commercial director, Jeff Yates, takes a dig deeper and tells us exactly what's been going on.
Thanks, Kelly. We've had a real mixed bag of factors since Brexit, all unfortunately resulting in a perfect storm from the perspective of a supply chain manager. We certainly can't ignore the Brexit factor. In those first few months after Brexit, European hauliers were ill-prepared and reticent to come to the UK, and those which did and which understood the rules quite rightly saw their value rocket, as of course did British hauliers themselves. I guess one of the really good things that came out from this period was the general public's appreciation of the haulage and logistics industry. The most expensive elements when you're looking at truck movements are fuel and the drivers themselves. On fuel, rates rose rapidly when Russia invaded Ukraine, and we haven't really seen them decrease since. What is interesting, though, is the levelling of the markets. You can now no longer say it's much significantly cheaper to refuel in Eastern Europe as opposed to West or in Britain. And also, of course, wherever you're from, sooner or later you will have to refuel and pay the local price for that. Attracting talent in all areas of business has been particularly difficult since the COVID-19 pandemic, but the driver shortage predates that pandemic significantly. Professional long-haul drivers are an ageing community, and the war in Ukraine has further reduced driver capacity. Those drivers which are available on the market have quite rightly seen their value increase. One of the surefire ways of attracting more entrants into the marketplace is to pay drivers well, but unfortunately that's the end user who will probably pay the price for that.
We're seeing more evidence of a pan-European recession. Do you see that having a significant impact on pricing?
We've seen large rising costs for transport between 2020 and 2022, driven by numerous factors. High demand for transports driven by the post-pandemic recovery of economies, increase in prices of raw materials to support those economies, increase in energy prices due to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the mobility package, and wage pressure from those inside the industry. To answer your question, Kelly, a recession will mean a reduced demand for the raw materials, which will have a direct impact on freight prices. Can I see a reduction back to pre-pandemic levels? Absolutely not. The second part of the mobility package came to effect in February 2022. Its goal was to increase driver welfare and to protect local transport markets. To give you an example, the German transport market, when I specialised in it 20 years ago, totally changed when Polish haulage were first allowed into the country. They were paying their drivers less and they were fuelling significantly cheaper. That had a massive effect on the ability for German hauliers to compete in their own market. The mobility package prevents any haulier from paying their drivers less than a local wage in any foreign economy. As an example, a Polish haulier doing a load for a German company into France would have to pay the German and French minimum wages. I would hope to see a return to more nationalised markets, Germans doing German markets, French doing French markets. Have we seen any evidence of that yet? No, we haven't.
Why do you think we're seeing more port fees, Jeff?
Simply because we're using port facilities more. Port fees have always been applicable for movements of international goods. And when Britain was in the European Union, of course, goods moving from the EU were intra-community and didn't require customs clearance. Since Brexit, those goods have required customs clearance, and of course then, via inventory ports, port fees have been applicable. We have seen more port fees introduced over the last couple of years for things like energy levies. And what's interesting is we've had different ports, despite being owned by the same owners, charge different port fees for different things. And we predict we will see a standardisation of port fees across the next few years. It's worth noting that port fees aren't payable for driver-accompanied routes such as those arriving into Dover and Folkestone. So if you want to avoid port fees altogether, speak to your freight forwarder, speak to your supplier, your transport company, and ask them to investigate using those routes.
Is there any good news for us, Jeff?
Well, there's bad news, Kelly, there's always good news. As an industry, freight forwarders have seen our market value rocket since Brexit. And I do mean value here, not cost. We have many different relationships with many different forwarders in many different countries. We have a real grasp of what the local rates are and what the current rates are. And what's really important, I think, now, especially in this new sustainable world we live in, we can choose vehicles which are close to collection points. We can optimise those routes and we can lower price as well as our carbon footprints.
Thank you for your insight today, Jeff. Hopefully this has helped our audience to put everything into perspective. Sadly, increased rates are a fact in the current climate, but it always helps to understand the reason behind the price hikes so that we can manage our logistics spend that little bit better. On that note, Watch out for our next episode of Espace TV, which is all about the value and benefits of a freight audit. If you've got any questions or queries on the matter, as always, you can email solutions@espaceglobalfreight.com or give us a call on 01543 412 348. As always, we're here to help.